Hey guys, and welcome back to Unknown Comics. So we've got a special video for you guys today. I was kind of just pondering the other day. So we had Batman 108 come out, which is the first appearance of Miracle Molly.
Okay.
And also just from all these Disney Plus shows coming out, the first appearances of these characters are starting to rise in price.
Right.
So I was just out of curiosity looking up stuff about Winter Soldier.
Okay.
And it brought to my attention all the different types of first appearances. So like you have the full appearance, you have cameos, you have first cover appearance. So I want to put together a video for you guys, especially those of you who are new to collecting, to kind of help you guys make sure you're finding what you really want.
Right.
Because I'm a reader, I'm not a collector. So every now and then I get a wild hair and I'm like, I want to pick up
The first
Batman 108
Hobgoblin
just to have it. Yeah. So I don't know much. So we brought on our expert.
Expert. I've collected comics for like 30-something years. That makes me an expert, I guess.
I think that's long enough to qualify.
Maybe. I'm excited about this conversation. I'm always excited to talk about comic books. I also want to kind of bust some of the myths about some cameos versus what's actually classified as a first appearance during our little time together.
Yeah.
Because books I do want to talk about in this are Miss Marvel 16 versus Miss Marvel 18.
Okay.
Hulk 180 versus Hulk 181. Amazing Spider-Man 299 versus 300. So there's a few books like along the way I would like to talk about, in my opinion, on what makes a cameo versus what makes a first appearance, because some books you actually get a cameo, but it in all right should be the first appearance.
Right.
Which then crashes the price of that book, even though that is legitimately the first appearance of that situation. So those are some of the things I would like to talk about in this, but where would you like to start?
So for starters, let's kind of get a basic grasp of, generally speaking, what is more valued, be it cameo, full appearances, or first appearance on a cover.
So in the modern era, I do believe that for value purposes, so let's go back and reclassify our pricing system.
Okay.
Because in the modern era, we have something that we did not have in the 70s and 80s and even 90s called the exclusive.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and call in this modern era, there's an asterisk in the modern era. Because you have the regular cover A, you may have a standard cover B, and then you have your ratios, then you have your exclusives, and then to top that off, then you have the second printing and third printing and fourth printing covers, which then can produce other ways of first appearances. So we're going to go back, and we're going to start with the standard A-B cover. DC does a standard A-B, like I think you have.
Yeah.
This is
B.
A-B. So typically, the B cover is all about the art, which means that cover, a lot of times, like as you can see, Batman 108.
Yeah, I picked up the B. So.
Is a beautiful art germ cover, and I'm pretty sure the print run on the B cover is going to be almost 2-to-1 on the A cover. Unless the speculators predicted that and then they ordered the other way around. So with Miracle Molly, she's on both covers.
Right.
So either way, you're still getting the first cover appearance of Miracle Molly. She's also in the book, so obviously you're getting an introduction to the character.
Right.
So in this, in my opinion, these are probably two of the books that you want to have if you're a speculator on long-term investments. You get the A because the A is probably a shorter print run because it's not about the art, it's about the book.
Okay.
And then the art germ is going to be it's pretty, it exists. It's probably not going to be worth as much as the A cover.
Okay.
It typically is not. Typically your A cover, because it's not about the art, it's not as ordered as heavy, so it's a shorter print run, which makes it a little bit more rare.
Right.
It goes back to even something as Killing the Children. The A cover, the standard is A cover, which is not near as pretty as the Frizzen version or the Pat Lee cover. It's just not as pretty. But it is worth almost 3 times in a 9/8 what the Jenny Frison cover is in a 9.8. But they're both first printings, but one is worth more than the other because the Frison cover was heavily ordered at FOC as an FOC variant.
Right.
So in the classification of what is going to be your most valuable book, it's going to be the A or the B. Now, there are ratios. There's a 1 in 50 kind of sketch variant. There's a 1 in 25, and then there's a 1 in 50 Art Germ foil cover. Now, the ratios typically will start outdoing the standard A and B cover because they're rarer.
Right.
The problem is when stores do exclusives on books, their exclusive numbers do count towards the ratios, which then puts an overabundance of ratios in the marketplace. So a lot of times when that takes place, because Batman 108 had like probably 20 exclusives.
So 1 in 50 out of a very large print run is still a lot of books.
The print run on, they announced it at 200,000 was the overall print run, including everything. So 200,000, what is that, 100,000 copies of the 1 in 50 that lives in the world? That's bigger than most print runs.
Right.
I mean, the standard Marvel or DC print run doesn't even reach 100,000. So the speculators bought big on this book. They bought big thinking but Miracle Molly is a long-term investment because when a publisher, and this is another example, is the Red Goblin that we're going to get to. When the publisher announces before final order cutoff, which we claim is FOC, that is what FOC ordering means, is final order cutoff. That gives all the speculators in the world just time to just stock up on these books. And it happens with everything. Anytime that the publishers let us know in advance, the speculators' orders can be in the hundreds on books. And it reached 200,000, which means that's exactly what happened with Batman 108. So when I look at that, when a cover has an exclusive value to it, like stores are doing exclusives, if that book has ratios, most likely those ratios are not good long-term investments. Or they are long-term, but they are not short-term investments.
Yes.
Because the market will be flooded with people dumping the ratios. Now, the other hand of that is when there's no exclusives involved, that's a whole different ball game to the book. And my best example on that is Edge of Spider-Verse.
Okay.
Number 2. It has a 1 in 25 Greg Land cover. But to my knowledge, not a single store did an exclusive on Edge of Spider-Verse number 2. Or Spider-Verse. I don't know what it's called. It was the first Prince of Spider-Gwen. That book in a 9.8, that Greg Land cover, is well over $5,000 now. It's just a 1 in 25. But they don't exist because the print run was shorted. Because it was a number 2.
Yeah.
It was a first appearance, kinda. And I have a whole theory on that we'll talk about when it comes to Spider-Gwen. So you have, when there's no exclusives involved, ratios are a great investment for first appearances. But again, I don't know if I'm straying too far from the question on, value-wise. But in this situation, Batman 108A is my winner. The Art Germ is my B. The 1 in 50 foil, because it's Art Germ and it's foil, is my C for investments. All the store exclusives, they're just pretty covers. You buy them because you like art, and that's really what exclusive buying is about. You buy it because you like the art, and maybe 1 out of every 50 covers that you buy, including all the different versions, will actually start climbing. But it's not very often that they climb and stay climbed. They'll come back and they'll settle down to around original pricing or $10 over.
Would you
original
think
pricing.
that might be kind of because people have their stores that they're loyal to, so they don't really care about other stores' exclusives as much?
It may be that. I mean, it could also be ignorance to the internet.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like older buyers, don't get on the internet to buy covers. They just go to their store, they pick up their books, they read their books. Then you have a faction of people that hate exclusives and everything they stand for. They despise exclusives for whatever reason. They don't like them. Then you have the people that only buy it because they like the art or they follow the artist. And then you have the people that just buy every exclusive that comes out because they're completionists. They have to have every book that is involved in that book. the best example of completionist is always going to be Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Those Amazing Spider-Man guys are insane on. I've actually had people accuse me of we were the reason why they quit collecting because they couldn't keep up with the exclusives.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, but I like the covers.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's like the people who don't like ratios or the people who don't like B covers. There's going to be collecting for everybody.
Right. I mean, it's like anything else. There's a niche for everybody within the niche itself.
And they've even found a way to make books that didn't even have a B cover more valuable between this direct and newsstand editions now that are going back to the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If it has that barcode versus the Spider-Man with the head crossed out, that barcode is worth X amount much more money. Or if it has a jeweler's insert in the book, all of a sudden it's worth more money.
Right.
So, I mean, people find ways to make things more collectible.
Right.
But when it comes to Batman 108, when the way we started, we did do an exclusive. But the thing we didn't talk about is her cameo was in Batman 106.
Yeah, so that was my next question. As a collector, should I be picking up Batman 106 also?
So, as a collector, yes. How big is her cameo? I have not read Batman 106.
I have not either.
Okay. So I'm going to flip through this real quick. It'll take me 2 seconds to flip through this so I can see what her cameo looks like. So we can talk about kind of what makes a cameo versus is this truly her first appearance. Because you have other stories like Punchline. Punchline's situation is very much different than a lot of others because people really following the Punchline train last year. And I feel like Miracle Molly is kind of in the same vein as what they're trying to push off on with when they pushed off on Punchline.
So are there certain books that you should keep an eye out for? Like, are Batman characters always going to do well, and are Spider-Man characters always going to do well, as opposed to maybe a lesser known universe?
So I'm going to go with the answer to that question is people who buy comic books. If you're a DC guy, you most likely buy Batman.
Right.
If you're a Marvel guy, you most likely buy Spider-Man. So I do believe that their characters get more attention. I mean, DC is really Batman and his friends.
Right.
If you think about what DC is, DC is...
Look at their cover prices. Batman's generally $1 more than all their other books. At least it used to be.
Well, they've upped the price now to $5 for the A and $6 for the B, I believe. Starting with Batman 108 or 106. Yeah, with 106. So you're going to get, which used to be the other way around. Your core books used to be cheaper than your secondary books.
Okay.
So for Spider-Man, you would pay $3. But for Ant-Man, you'd pay $4. Well, now they flopped it to their primary book because they sell more copies, so they might as well just get more money out of it.
Right.
So it looks to me, just flipping through this very quickly, Punchline has a partial face appearance with some words, like she's having dialogue with somebody. She's talking to somebody on the phone. And then a couple pages over, it kind of gives a little bit more of her face. But they never really get past. You get one eye, you get her face, you get the basic design, which to me is really pushing towards closer to like a first appearance.
Okay.
When you have characters that have multiple panels, I mean, she's having a whole dialogue at this point. Now, it's not the first full body, so I'm going to go ahead and say it's okay to stick it as a cameo, but I think it has better legs of value because of that than Batman 108. Because there's enough in there to say, yes, she was in it. Yes, she was obviously in it. So Batman 106 to me as a cameo is a better investment than Batman 108.
Okay.
Just because of the print run difference. I mean, 200,000 it's a lot of books.
Yeah.
Nothing in comparison to the 90s when everything hit 1 million, but it is a lot of books. But talking of cameos versus full first appearances, I want to go to the first appearance of Mystique.
Okay.
Which is Miss Marvel 16 and Miss Marvel 18. I've always been conflicted about the first appearance of Mystique because in Miss Marvel 16 is declared her cameo appearance. And I understand she's a shapeshifter. I understand. But her first accredited cameo appearance is her, I believe it was her as Nick Fury in one panel. How is that
Yeah.
a cameo in any way?
I mean, if you're going to get into that, you could take any Marvel book and say it was Mystique's
Yeah.
first cameo appearance.
Because she's older than, she's one of the oldest characters that's in the Marvel comic world. I mean, she's been around for at least 100 years. So, I mean, she could have been, I don't know, Captain America once
Right.
in the 1940s.
Captain America -- was actually
was
Mystique.
Mystique, yeah. That's really just her punching Hitler in the face. So, like, but then you have her first full appearance in Miss Marvel 18. But to me, like, 16 shouldn't even count at all. Because, okay, she's running around. I mean, it could have been Vanessa, copycat. I mean, it
Yeah.
could have been any shapeshifter. I mean, that is like one of the most, like, diluted ideas of a cameo that I think you can get. And what is a cameo?
Like, that's something only the writer knew.
Right. Like, all right. Because, I mean, how do you know that that wasn't, like, Nick Fury? Like, oh, let's go change the backstory just a little.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't know. I think that that is a cameo appearance that is questionable. But it is what it is. It is accredited as her cameo appearance. But I think Miss Marvel 18, in my opinion, is, like, full-blown, this is the book to own. And now we're going to jump to what I believe is one of the most controversial, like, sets of what is a first appearance versus a cameo. And it's two-part. It's ASM 299 and 300, Amazing Spider-Man, and Incredible Hulk 180 versus 181. And if you can, when you put this video online, can you pull, like, some imaging to put in there? Because at the end of 180, Wolverine comes bounding out, comes crashing out of the background. Full image, like full body image, and talks. And communicates with the characters on the page. That, by definition, is the first appearance. That is. It's just flat down the first appearance of Wolverine. Every trading card, every Marvel wiki that actually comes declared from Marvel actually declares Incredible Hulk 180 as the first appearance of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Not a cameo, the first appearance. But I believe that collectors have made their way with the Wolverine and have pushed the agenda to saying Hulk 181 is his first appearance. But he's not. It's not. He was in the last page of 180, full blown, and now you have this secondary market. Like, the first appearance of Wolverine, 181, is insane. Like, a 9.4 is now over a $20,000 book. You have 7.5s going for in the teens.
Yeah.
So now those people who have now made Wolverine out of reach are now starting the argument, well, what if it is 180? So they can afford it.
Right.
And they're trying to push 180 is now the first appearance, so they can now afford to buy 180, and then they are creating an artificial push for 180 to be the book, because now 180 is starting to climb in value. And there will always be the controversy of what is what. So what is your opinion on in that? I mean, you may say that I'm the expert, but you've collected comics for a long time.
I mean, to me, it's whatever Marvel says is the first appearance is the first appearance.
Okay.
The market might dictate the value of it. So if the market says 181 is the first appearance, well, they're incorrect in saying it's first appearance, but they've made the book more valuable than the actual first appearance.
And do you believe that maybe people push for it's the first appearance because it's the first time Wolverine's on the cover?
See, that's another. I think those are two different things.
Right.
There's a first appearance in the book, and there's a first cover appearance, and those are two different things.
But
Just so happens, like with Batman 108 being her first appearance, and she's on. That's just coincidence.
Right. Do you think we subconsciously, though, have created? Because again, it's modern versus the 70s. It's modern versus bronze. Do you believe that maybe people was like, oh, Wolverine's on the cover, has to be his first appearance?
I think so, because we are kind of spoiled in modern age that the new characters generally are on the cover.
Right.
Because it's a selling point for the book.
Right.
They're trying to sell it to you. Whereas back then, like, it was a big surprise in the book, you know.
Right.
So I do think as a modern market, we are kind of misled, and it's something that should be educated.
So we're then going to skip to the late 80s to Venom.
Okay.
So I want to talk about, and this falls in the same line as how I feel about Hulk 180 versus 181. Amazing Spider-Man 300 is the first accredited first appearance of Venom. Mm-hmm. 9.8s are currently selling for $7,500 plus right now, which is insane for a book from the 80s.
Yeah.
People have more money than sense right now because you can still find them. And
Yeah.
just go look at garage sales. You'll still find them, I promise. I've owned so many copies of Amazing Spider-Man 300. It's ridiculous. But at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 299, Mary Jane, I believe, walks into her apartment. Venom is standing there, gets her all scared, interacts with Mary Jane in conversation. It's a very brief conversation. But full body shot, outside of maybe from the calves down. Mm-hmm. That is his first appearance.
Right.
I mean, he may have a bigger part of the story, but his first appearance is 299, and his full story, I think that should be the asterisk. Mm-hmm. One page panel versus full story, but 299 is his first appearance. Well, then you skip ahead, so you have what I believe is the first appearance of 299, which is now on the climb because 300 is starting to become out of reach for people. Then you have 300 as his first full story. And unlike Hulk 181, Venom doesn't make his first cover appearance till 316. Mm-hmm. And now that book is starting to sell for like over, I think it's over $2,000 now for a 9.8. So that book is on the climb because it's the first accredited cover appearance of Venom. But in my opinion, when it comes to everything, neither one of these situations are cameos.
Right.
It is 180 is Wolverine's first appearance. If you have a full image of this character with dialogue, that is your first appearance.
Yeah, well, because to me, first appearance doesn't mean first full story.
Right.
It means the first time you see the entire character and they say something.
Right.
And so, you know, I think, particularly with Venom, I think that 300 is an easier number to remember.
Right.
So I think that's where it's a full story and it's a round number.
Right. So we've covered the big ones. So the other thing about first appearances is, of course, what we've already been kind of talking about, the first cover appearance.
Yeah.
I know in the store exclusive world, all the store exclusives people, all the stores like ourselves, are always chasing that first cover appearance of a character because it does spike the sales. People want that first cover appearance. It'll always help the book long term sell forever. But then there is the first cover appearance from Marvel or from DC or from a publisher. It's usually Marvel or DC. Other publishers, it doesn't really matter. There's a few outlying books like Walking Dead or whatnot that the first cover appearance matters a little bit.
I would say most of the first appearance stuff really matters more with superhero books than.
And it's
just
because
stories.
everybody's waiting for them to show up in a movie or show up in a story. So the way first appearances work, Batman 108 was blatant. It's going to be, here you go, this is the first appearance, we are here. But other first cover, Taskmaster #3 comes to mind right off the top of my head. I cannot even begin to pronounce this Korean superhero that was introduced in Taskmaster #3, but his first appearance was in that, and then they did a second printing with him on the cover.
Okay.
And so the second printing is actually the first accredited cover appearance of this character, and people bought in big, which made the book worthless. But Marvel is very good as if a book, even DC has started doing this. If a character is introduced in the book and the book goes to second printing, a lot of the times they will go ahead and put that character on the cover of the second printing. It actually happened with Flash Thompson's Anti-Venom.
Okay.
Was it Spider-Man 654, maybe? I'm not sure. I know the cover in my head. And it essentially just, there's a few different symbiote first appearance covers that by the second printing is worth way more than the first printing because it actually shows that first appearance. So it is a good investment to chase cover first appearances, especially when it comes to second and third and fourth printings, because those are usually short printed. Not the last year, maybe not so much, but before this last year, second printings were the way to go if you were chasing investment opportunities, because those books would climb in value faster. So if you're a collector and you want cover first appearances, one, Batman 108, obviously first cover appearance. Every store exclusive also was the first appearance. I mean, buy the covers you like for art at that point, because outside of owning the A cover and possibly the B cover, most of the other store exclusives are not going to be worth a whole lot. Right. They're going to be worth what you paid for them, maybe a little bit more in the secondary market, but it is what it is. But the other thing I want to talk about, and we've talked about this briefly, characters that come together to make one character. And we're going to talk about Red Goblin.
Yeah.
Because Red Goblin is the Carnage symbiote and Norman Osborn come together to make the Red Goblin. Of course, Norman Osborn first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 37 from the 60s. Carnage appeared in 361, Amazing Spider-Man 361. So technically, for both of those purposes, that is the first appearance.
Right.
Well, Marvel played this game, I believe this was in 2018 that this event went on. And so they played this game. When is the Red Goblin going to finally appear? When is going to be his first appearance? And this started at like 792.
Okay.
And so every issue, all the speculators were all over this book. Like the book was just getting bought like crazy. They built this hype of this new character, this new symbiote. Who is the Red Goblin? What is going on? Who is this going to be? When is he going to first appear? So from 792 to 800, they just built this epic amount of printing. Like it was just like every book's numbers beat the next book. And we finally got to that story that leading up to 800. It was the Red Goblin story. And Marvel teased us like crazy. Like, hey, is it 797? So we did the 4-part connecting covers.
Yes.
Which obviously we did get the first accredited cover appearance, kinda. Comic Exposure actually got the first cover appearance of the Red Goblin with their exclusive on 796. It was a nice Clayton Crane cover. But they technically did get the first cover appearance. So if you're looking, by the way, for cover appearances, it's Comic Exposure's 796, I believe. It's a Clayton Crane. It's a 5-part connecting cover set. To me, that is the first cover appearance. That is the first appearance of Red Goblin, because he's on the cover. He doesn't have talking, so take it as you must. But each one of these panels, this is broken out into 4 covers. So 797, 800, or 797, 798, 799, 800. So, and as you can see, each panel we actually have Red Goblin on there, not to mention the big giant Red Goblin in the middle. So Marvel is just teasing us like crazy about Red Goblin. And so is 797 going to be it? And so everybody ordered huge numbers on 797. And then about 5 hours before final order cutoff, Marvel has a retailer group. And we got this information. Hey guys, just so y'all know, and this is before final order cutoff, Red Goblin's first appearance is 798. Like, they just straight up told us, Red Goblin's first appearance is 798. And the buying frenzy went nuts. It was probably the biggest printed book that Marvel has done in quite a few years leading up to that point. Like, people just went insane about the Red Goblin. I think we ended up having to order, not even including exclusives, we had to order 13,000 copies just to fill our orders for that book.
Wow.
13,000 copies, not including exclusives. Because there was the A cover, then there was the Connecting Ramos cover, and then there was a 1 in 50 McGinnis, like full body, and then there was a 1 in 10 variant of the Ed McGinnis. And then there was a Venom variant, 35th anniversary of Venom variant for that book. So there was 5 covers to begin with, and the world went insane. It was quite the craziness. It was just the feeding frenzy of everybody bought into everything for this book. $7.99 numbers were still strong. They weren't as strong as $7.98, and by 800, they had 10 covers. It was a $10 price book. We still sold a lot of Spider-Man, but it wasn't like $7.98. So that's where that the publisher gave us permission to talk about it early. The people bought it. And I think even now you can go on and buy the first appearance of Red Goblin on eBay for like $5.
Just because there's
so many copies. I bet you it printed more copies than, again, I can almost guarantee it printed more copies than Batman 108.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that Amazing Spider-Man 798 is a long-term investment, because there's lots of books from the 90s that were printed in the hundreds of thousands that are now starting to see value happen.
Well, and as we build a Spider-Verse on this big screen, we're going to get into a lot of these characters eventually.
Yeah, if Red Goblin ever shows his face, whether in the cartoon Spider-Verse or in the Sony universe, we're a really long way from that, by the way. Like a live action Red Goblin, I mean, we're probably a decade away from even the idea of that. But if that ever did happen, $7.98 will explode with artificial pricing. It will go from a $5 book to a $30 book just like overnight. I mean, look what happened with the Carnage trailer. The Carnage Venom 2 trailer dropped this week. Amazing Spider-Man 361 has already been on the rise, but it exploded on Tuesday with the trailer.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a rare instance where, well, Batman 108 is the exact same instance, actually. We knew in advance. We knew the characters were coming. And with knowing that the character's coming, the world knows. So all of your speculators are trying to buy on this book. And then the speculators, once they figured out they all did the same dumb thing, all of a sudden just start griping about how the world is so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny. I'm in a couple spec groups, and they get so mad when the books print like that. But I was like,
You ordered it.
you ordered it. You're part of the problem. You talked about it. Like, it is what it is at this point. And if you're a long-term investment, and like you look at 10 years from now, or you go to shows, that is something to think about. I mean, and it's a bunny trail outside of what we're trying to talk about. When you get something that massively overprinted, if anybody's halfway educated, they'll just go look on eBay to see what the prices are.
Right.
But if you own a retail store or you're at a convention with that book at there is something about holding that $5 book in your hand and someone has $20 on it, but you put first appearance. They'll hand over a $20 bill like it was nothing because they're not going to go look on eBay. So there is a difference in the way you look at the speculative market. If you have a store or you're a convention guy that sets up at conventions, you put that little first appearance on there, and all of a sudden people are willing to pay 4 times or even more what that book is actually worth because it's an uneducated buy.
Right. Well, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are getting into collecting and don't know the numbers of these first appearances off the top of their head.
Right.
So they see that and they're like, "Ooh, it's only $20 and it's a first appearance. This is a deal." You know, because they don't know.
Right. And you're going to always catch that. And I don't do this. I don't overcharge like that when it comes to books like that, but you can. I believe it's kind of a predatory market if you're going that deep and like taking advantage, but that's another story for another day.
So there's one more instance I want to talk about.
Okay.
Angela from Spawn.
Oh, okay.
First appeared in Spawn number 9.
Okay.
But then in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
she moved to Marvel,
Right.
and she technically first appeared in the Age of Ultron miniseries in issue number 10,
Okay.
but they kind of advertised her first appearance to be Guardians of the Galaxy number 5.
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts when they appear in a miniseries as opposed to an ongoing? And also when a character switches publishers also.
Characters don't very often switch publishers. You don't get many characters that go from being in Spawn from Image to jumping in as a semi-regular appearance character in Marvel as part of their universe.
Yeah, there was a lot of legal stuff that went on.
Yeah, a lot of legal stuff to separate the two. To me, Spawn number 9 will always be the book to own.
Right.
That is her first appearance. They may have changed her story to let her enter into the Marvel Universe, but her first appearance is Spawn number 9. That is absolutely the book to own. The sales on that book reflect that. A 9.8 is actually going for really good money right now. I believe its signed copies are over $1,000. And that's back when that's another overprinted book. That book is not rare. That book is not rare at all. That book probably has 300 or 400,000 copies printed. So that book is not rare, yet it is going for a lot of money. When it comes to jumping ship and going to a new publisher, I do think there's something to be said about when does she first appear in that universe, which would be Age of Ultron. But if they're really pushing Guardians, the reason why is because Age of Ultron was trash. Like, it was a trash story.
It was.
I mean, it was delayed. It didn't make sense. It tied into books that didn't make any sense to it.
It had all this build up to what was going on, and then she just kind of appears at the end and saves everybody.
Yeah, and there's no really, like, everything about the Age of Ultron, like, storyline was trash.
I think they rushed it because that was the same year that Age of Ultron, the movie, came out.
Well, it was actually a delayed story. That's why it didn't make sense to anything. That's why, like, Fantastic Four, I think it was like Fantastic Four 8U and Avengers 19U, because they're like, we don't actually know how to fit this in because this wasn't designed this way, but we're going to anyways. And that may be why they didn't really push Guardians that hard. I mean, they're pushing Guardians harder, but neither one are her first appearances. And so, to me, they're meaningless jumping on points. You can say first appearance of Angela in the Marvel Universe obviously goes to Age of Ultron. First appearance, but even Age of Ultron is not a mini-series that stands inside of the regular universe. It was like a what-if story.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it's different, because what happened in Age of Ultron did not have an overall effect on the main storytelling of Marvel. So maybe that's why Guardians was the purpose.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Like, I just know that Age of Ultron was trash, and it was just a garbage storyline that was rushed, and the art wasn't very great. I didn't enjoy any part of Age of Ultron. But Guardians, to me, was the big push. I mean, stores did exclusives on it. I think Midtown had an exclusive, and somebody else probably had an exclusive on that book as well.
Hastings
had one. That was before my Hastings times. I was still
just barely.
Yeah, it was barely before me.
No, Guardians, you would have just started at Hastings. It came out in that summer.
Did it?
It came out like June or July of 14.
Then it could have been some. No, we're gonna have to look those dates up. We're gonna have to look, because I started in April, and the big storyline I thought when I started was Infinity. Because I finished Age of Ultron while I had the Table's Edge. Like, I got to issue 10.
Right, but Guardians came out later.
Well, I didn't set up an Angela cover. Okay. So that would have been the predecessor at Hastings James.
Well, I guess that's right, because you'd have to have set it up a couple months in advance.
Right.
So you just missed it.
I'm going to have to go check that out. There's also another character, before we wrap it all up, is Superior Spider-Man. You know, Doc Ock merging with Peter Parker. You know, that ASM 800 storyline leading into Superior. But one of the books that's kind of forgotten is Daredevil 22, because he interacts with Daredevil before Superior Spider-Man actually starts.
Oh.
So, in the interaction of that, Daredevil actually gets a lot of random first appearances that nobody knows about.
Does that take place even before what happens in ASM 700 and 699?
I think because 700 leads off with basically Peter Parker dies at the end, and but between 700 and Superior Spider-Man 1,
Okay.
Daredevil happens.
Okay.
And so Daredevil actually had a little bit of value on that one because it was basically interaction with another book. But the same thing actually happened with ASM 252 versus another Daredevil book. Like after Secret Wars, the symbiote Spider-Man actually did appear in a Daredevil book. And then ASM 252. So Daredevil just randomly gets a lot.
Secret here, just get Daredevil.
Yeah,
You'll end up with all the good stuff.
Just buy Daredevil. I mean, apparently he just gets all of it, and he's just the redheaded stepchild of. Isn't he redheaded too? Isn't Matt Murdock redheaded?
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to look that up. I believe he is. He's that, or he's just. We're gonna call him redheaded for now. He's the redheaded stepchild of Marvel. Gets beat up all the time. Gets no love. Has to bail everybody else out. Now he's in prison. Because now you have Elektra running around as Daredevil.
And that was a pretty big deal, too.
That was a huge deal. Like, it was considered a key, and I'm like, there's been other people running around as Daredevil, but okay. I think those first appearances, when somebody shares a costume or takes over a role, because I think they're talking about Okoye, is that how you pronounce it, from Black Panther? The guard?
Maybe I don't.
Okay. They're talking about, like, I saw an ad that she's going to take over as Iron Fist from Danny Rand. That's a short-lived first appearance. Like, whenever that happens, that book may artificially inflate to $10 or $15, and then it's going to drop right back down to $5. Those kind of, I think when two characters merge to become one, I don't think those first appearances ever actually live up to the hype, and they don't ever actually stay valuable. I think there's an artificial inflation, and then they drop.
Well, yeah, because the whole thing with comics is you always reset the status quo at the end of the story. So those two characters are going to unmerge by the end of the story, and everything's going to be back the way it was.
And here, the same thing I told everybody in 2014 when the Amazing Spider-Man movie was coming out, and Superior Spider-Man was rolling out. So there's been a couple of instances when Captain America died in 2007. I told everybody then, it's okay. He'll be back by the time his movie comes out.
No one stays dead.
No one stays dead. And Marvel doesn't
Not even Bucky stays dead.
Marvel doesn't create confusion. So by the time the movies come out, it is almost their rule to make sure that whoever that character is in the movie is going to be that character in the comic books.
Now we might see, because of the way the movie's going, that we might see Sam as Captain America in that instance in the book.
They've already done that. That's where
they have already done it, but they do reset things, and Sam is lined up to be Cap 4.
They might explore that, but because there's a whole book about it already, they may just really push the trade paperbacks.
Oh yeah.
They may just reprint those to make sure people understand that story. Because I doubt they're going to go back and play that scenario again. And that book actually has jumped in value. I think that's Captain America 25, who's the new Captain America, which is after he died, who took the shield. But in those situations, like when Superior Spider-Man was rolling, they were about to come out with the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Yes.
And I kept telling everybody, it's like, I promise you, you may hate Superior Spider-Man, even though it's one of the best stories ever written in Marvel Comics.
It was good.
It was so good. But by the time we get to that movie, I promise you, Peter Parker will be Spider-Man again. The movie came out in May, and guess what book came out in May? Amazing Spider-Man 1. They rebooted it in 2014.
I remember people being so freaked out about the death of Peter Parker.
Yes, they were mad, and they were book burnings, and it was like when a player does something wrong in sports, they start burning his jersey in the streets.
Yeah, you go burn that book. You just make mine more valuable.
Right, and now that book is valuable because Dan Slott created such a unique telling. And we'll talk about Superior Spider-Man some other time, because that's not what this is about. But I will tell you that and Avengers Arena were the best two things to come out of, like, from 2012 to 2016.
The whole Marvel Now era.
Yeah, that Marvel Now era was actually pretty good. Bendis on X-Men. You had the Avengers Arena by Dennis Hopeless. I mean, if you haven't read Avengers Arena, you are doing yourself an injustice. So I'm going to put that out there right now. There's going to be other first appearances that we can talk about in the long term. I think Strange Academy has some first appearances that we need to talk about one day. They just announced there's a new mutant named Solace in the new Marvel Voices Pride book that's coming out in June. So if you haven't ordered that yet and you watched this before, go ahead and order that book. There is some cover first appearances from Marvel for that character. Almost every one of these Marvel Voices books has had first appearances in it, so they're pushing, hey, buy these Marvel Voices books, they're important. The Native American one had one, the African American one had one, and now the Marvel Pride one also has one. So these are important books to go ahead and buy, not to mention they support good causes. They support awareness for these different groups of people that need to have awareness given to them. But there are some big things coming. The other thing I want to do in a future segment, not today, is deaths in comics.
Yes, that would be another
I
good
think
video.
deaths in comics are important. And the reason why I'm going to say that is by X Factor 10. We'll talk about it why later, but X Factor 10 is important. Marvel's pushing X Factor 10 because of what it's going to do to the summer story of Marvel X-Men. Anything else?
No, I think that about covers it.
Okay.
If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We'll try and we can make a follow-up video if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, these are fun to talk about. I may have rambled a little bit and chased some bunny trails, but
part of the fun of it.
it's part of the fun. It's part of talking comics and part of going to your local comic book store. These are great conversations to bring up in your local comic book store. Because there's lots of... I mean, the funnest conversations I always have is pissing off Batman people by saying, I think Iron Man could piss off Batman. I beat up Batman. One invested in boomerangs, the other one invested in lasers. So it's fun to tease people. So if you do have a local comic book store, go in there, start a conversation about what you want. Those guys have been in comics a long time. Hopefully they read or at least understand the basics of the ideas of comics. Have those conversations. It'll get other people involved and build your community. Our conversations have gone back for almost a decade now. So it's fun to talk comics, even if you're right or you're wrong. If something we said in the videos you believe is incorrect, tell us. We'll look it up and we'll figure it out ourselves. You're never going to change my mind on Hulk 180 or ASM 299. If you believe the other way around, you're wrong. So
Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like this kind of content, please be sure to like and subscribe and share with all your friends. And be sure to hit that notification bell so you get an update every time we post a video. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
bye.